Hello, everyone. This is Anna Pacheco with SantaFe101.com. My guest today is Myra Oden, and she is from Torrance County. She's a realtor. Myra, do I have your permission to record this interview?
Yes, you do.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. So first of all, tell us who you're associated with. And I don't know a thing about Torrance County, especially when it comes to real estate. So I'm going to get a great education from you in the next 20 minutes or so. So go ahead and take it away, Myra.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you everything you need to know about Torrance County.
Okay.
We are rural in nature. We are small town America. We are the country lifestyle at its best. We sit right on the border between Santa Fe County, Bernalillo County. So we're kind of a tri-county area, and we service a huge area. My franchise is with United Country, which is based out of Kansas City, Missouri, and we specialize in rural properties. So I don't cross the mountain and go into Albuquerque, and I don't go into Santa Fe. I deal strictly with rural properties.
So in terms of proximity for people that might be watching this, what would be the drive to Albuquerque and Santa Fe? So people might want to know, how far they are from a bigger city.
We are about 35 minutes from the Juan Tabo exit in Albuquerque, and we're about 50 minutes into Santa Fe.
So you're closer to Albuquerque than Santa Fe.
We are, but I think we're in a great proximity between the two largest cities of the state, and we're right on I-40. So we have some awesome transportation pluses for us.
And are there any subdivisions? Are you in Moriarty?
I am in Moriarty, and yes, there are a lot of subdivisions in the area. Most of them being at least 2 acres. People come out here from the city because they want some acreage. They want some space. They don't want their neighbor right in their backyard 15 feet away. And so they're looking to spread out, have their animals, and enjoy the country lifestyle.
And do they actually, are they able to make a living, do they have little ranches or farms, or do they make a living on these properties, or they just want the space?
Most of them want the space, and many of them are commuters, either to Albuquerque or Santa Fe. So
they go to work in the bigger city.
Right. We are somewhat of a bedroom community to both Albuquerque and Santa Fe.
And how long have you been out there?
I've been out here for 42 years.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
I still sound like I just stepped across the Texas state line, but I've been here a long time.
And in terms of pricing, I know Santa Fe is my hometown, and it doesn't sound expensive for people from the bigger cities looking at Santa Fe, but for us locals, it is very expensive. What is the median cost? How much does it cost? And what do you get for the median cost of real estate in Moriarty or throughout Torrance County?
Well, let me just say to you, first of all, before I get into pricing, that we have a lot of people coming down this way toward Moriarty and the Edgewood area from Santa Fe, because the high housing prices in Santa Fe are driving them this direction, and they make the commute to Santa Fe every day from this close proximity. So price-wise, there's a variety of stuff. I mean, you can go high end, $500,000, $600,000 houses with beautiful horse facilities and beautiful, beautiful pastures. And there's all prices down from there. We've got manufactured homes that sit on 2 acres, and people build a small little ranchette on those. They can have 1 or 2 horses and their dogs and their cats, and they are able to spread out a little bit. We also deal with larger acreage. We sell large ranches of 1,000+ acres, and a lot of those are outside of Torrance County. And so we do travel anywhere we can go to bring large acreage into the picture.
So when you're looking at something like 1,000-acre ranch, would that be used for, herding cattle? Or, I mean, that would be more of a business enterprise, wouldn't it? I
It
mean,
is, it is. It's mostly cattle operations. And of course, people have horses as well. And we just closed on a property over in Santa Rosa in Guadalupe County. That was a little over 1,000 acres, and it had riverfront access at the Pecos River just outside of Santa Rosa. So we deal with a variety of properties, anywhere from commercial properties to residential to vacant land to large ranches.
and would you say, so is 2 acres kind of like the normal size of a lot that people would be looking at?
Well, if you're inside Moriarty proper, no. The lots are much, much smaller, less than 1/4 of an acre, because you're within the city limits.
So you have neighbors next, it's kind of like a suburban neighborhood,
It
kind of like where I
is.
grew up. So those,
It is.
so you do have those as well. So what would a house like in a, I'd say like a regular suburban neighborhood in the town of Moriarty, what would a house like that cost? More or less?
Those run anywhere from 75,000 up to 225, depending on what the amenities are in the house.
But is it about a 17 to 2,000 square foot house?
It is. It
Okay,
is.
well, that's
Yes.
still, that's much lower than Santa Fe. No wonder people from Santa Fe would rather commute from Moriarty and and have a nicer space out there. And then when you get to like, say, a 2 acre lot of land and it's, maybe there's a prefab home on it, what would something like that cost?
Well, if it's a newer home, and let's assume that it's got maybe a detached garage, and let's assume that maybe it has a 2-horse run-in, something like that would run you 150 to 225.
Okay, and then a lot of these, would they already have water on the property, or do you have to dig a well?
Some do, some don't. Now, many of these lots that are just vacant land, that are 2 acres and up, the buyer may have to drill a well. And those are expensive. A well's going to cost you anywhere from $14,000 to maybe as high as $20,000,
Well,
depending
that
on.
still sounds lower. I've gotten quotes up in northern New Mexico where it's starting at 25,000 and maybe ending at 60,000. So it sounds more.
And there are some areas here that they will go as much as 30 or 40,000, depending on how much rock is involved.
Right. But I actually hear you have drillers in the area, in the immediate
We do.
area. That's the other thing I've heard about northern New Mexico. They have to get people from Moriarty if they'll even consider going up north to dig a well. So you have them
Well,
there.
we have some families that are 5-generation well drillers. So
Okay.
we have a good stock of well drillers, I'm glad to say.
And what, so in addition to like the higher cost of living in either Santa Fe or Albuquerque, what are some of the other things that it would attract? Why would other people consider moving? You know, maybe they want to have like a little farm or ranch, but what else attracts people to Moriarty?
Well, I think peace and quiet, that's one of the biggest things we hear. But also in Torrance County, we're pretty varied as far as our topography goes. We have the grasslands for the cattle and the horses, but we also have mountainous areas. We are at the foot of the Sandia Mountains, and so we have lots of recreational opportunities here as well. Going down south toward Mountain Air and then going westward, you know, you've got the beautiful red rock areas there. And so we are in the foothills of the Cibola National Forest. So a lot of people come here to be remote and private and to live in those foothills for recreational purposes.
And since you mentioned it, you did mention Mountain Air. I think it's maybe 2 summers ago, Mountain Air actually ran out of water. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Yeah, there was no something. We were in a terrible drought. Maybe it's 3 years ago now. I mean, New Mexico's we're always in some type of a drought. But I remember at some point in time, the town of Mountain Air, they had run out of water. They were having to haul it in. That doesn't ring a bell?
Well, it's not uncommon for wells to need service and sometimes go down. And I know all the municipalities, as well as all the landowners that have private wells, you know, do what they can to keep their wells functioning. And sometimes new wells have to be drilled, and that's just a fact of life.
And so when we're suffering through a drought period, how does that affect the well? There's just no groundwater, or how does that work? Please excuse my ignorance, but I don't know.
The Estancia Basin is in what's called a closed basin. which means we don't have a river that runs through us.
Mm-hmm.
So all of our recharge comes from snowpack. And so because we've not had normal snowpack in the last 10 years, our water aquifer has dropped considerably. And many households that rely on private domestic wells have had to re-drill their well, or sometimes they will set up for water haul rather than re-drill a well. And many of the farmers in the area have had to drill additional wells and replace old ones, or they'll tie two wells together to be able to get the amount of water out that they need for irrigation purposes.
But you mentioned that they choose to have like water haul. I mean, are there companies that actually bring water to you? Is that part of a?
There are companies that will do water delivery, and some people have a designated vehicle that they put a large tank on, and they'll go and fill that up periodically.
And where do they get the water? Where do they go get the water from?
Moriarty has an area where they can fill that water up. Mountain Air also has one, and I'm not sure about Estancia.
Okay, but then again, going back to just like the town proper in Moriarty, where people, you have next door neighbors and things.
Mm-hmm.
You're all on a municipal water system, correct?
We are, yes,
okay.
Municipal water, municipal sewer, and of course electric, natural gas.
And then in terms of schooling, if there are like young families listening to this recording right now, how are the schools in Moriarty?
Well, the schools in Moriarty have always had a very good reputation. And we're elementary schools. We're tied with Edgewood. It's Moriarty Edgewood School District. And so there are 3 elementary schools in the area. There's 2 mid schools and the 1 high school. And we've got elementary, mid school, and high school in Moriarty. And then there are 2 elementary schools and a mid school in Edgewood.
Okay, so, and how far would Edgewood, I mean, how far are the 2 towns if you had to commute?
We're 8 miles apart. We're just
okay.
a very short distance.
Now,
we're tied at the hip to one another.
There you are. Okay, so now for people that, again, that may be listening to this interview, and now they have the opportunity to work remotely through their company, and they're looking at, a nice place to raise a family where, like, as you had said earlier, you can spread out, you have privacy. So maybe one of the, maybe the husband or the wife has this great job working remotely, but then the other spouse would like to have some type of employment. Are there jobs available in your area without having to commute to Albuquerque or Santa Fe for some of these people that might be looking to move to your area?
Well, the primary employers are the school system, the utility companies. I mean, we don't have large employment here. That's why a lot of people do commute to either Santa Fe or Albuquerque.
What about nightlife? I mean, are there restaurants? I mean, what do people do when they get out of work and they want to hang out with their families? Or, I mean, I know on weekends and things, there's, in terms of outdoors, there's probably a lot of beautiful things and they can experience, but are there any restaurants? Are there things to do at night or for younger
people? There are restaurants in Moriarty. There are a number of restaurants in Moriarty. And because we're right on Route 66, a lot of these restaurants really play up that Route 66 nostalgia in the area, which is always well received. In the evenings, it kind of centers around what's going on at the school with sports activities and stuff for kids. But I have to admit, a lot of people do go into Albuquerque for entertainment. Of course, that's kind of limited now with COVID.
Well, of course. I mean, now, we're talking about pre and post COVID. We're not going to talk about what's going on now because we're all kind of in, I call it purgatory or limbo right now.
Right.
No one is doing much of anything right now. So where do you live on a ranch or a little farm, or what do you actually have out there?
No, I recently just moved to the city limits of Moriarty, I'm glad to say. I did live in Edgewood on a 7-acre piece, and we were in the foothills, and all our children are gone, and we decided to downsize and move into the same city where our office is located.
So that's also a point, I guess, as families, as your children grow up and you want to downsize, there are communities in Moriarty where retirees could live. Is it a nice place to retire?
It is. And we've got all the basics that everybody needs to retire here. There's a grocery store in Moriarty. We've got a hardware store. You know, we've got everything to take care of all of your necessities.
And this is always a big question for retirees, but how is, in terms of the health system, do you have to travel to Albuquerque or Santa Fe for medical care? I mean,
There
just
is a
for
medical
doctor's
clinic.
visits? I mean, do they
There's a
have,
medical clinic in Moriarty, and there are, I think there are 3 in Edgewood. The downsides to that is that we don't have a hospital on this side of the mountain.
okay, but you do have doctors and
But
dentists.
we do have doctors. We absolutely have doctors and clinics and pharmacies. We have all of that.
Okay, and then you just mentioned a moment ago, like you know, school sports. So you have Little League and all the things that young families would be looking at.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's Little League, and of course there's volleyball and basketball and football and all of that stuff associated with the schools. And Moriarty's very proud of their athletic system, and they've done a great job over the years.
Well, again, it sounds, your area sounds like a really nice area for younger families starting out, as long as they have, if they're, as long as their unemployment, I mean, they're not their unemployment, their employment prospects are covered. It sounds like a great place to start out. You know, you might have a couple acres you want to stretch out, maybe have a, you know, a goat or something, but it sounds like something that would be ideal for people that are looking for more than, you know, if they want to get out of a big city environment where they don't want
Absolutely,
crowds and
absolutely.
that type of thing.
And we see a lot of people coming out here from Rio Rancho, from Albuquerque, because they just want to escape that city life.
So in addition to seeing people from, you know, other parts of New Mexico moving to your area, are you getting people from out of state that is somehow?
We are.
Or
We are.
like some of the areas people might be moving?
We're seeing people from California. We're seeing people from Colorado, Oklahoma, and then of course there are people from the East Coast that are coming as well.
And how do they hear about you?
Well, we're widespread on the internet, and all you got to do is get on the internet and start looking for property. And I guarantee you, United Country will come up in whatever it is that you're searching.
Now, I know here in Santa Fe, and I've heard this from other realtors that I've been speaking around throughout the state, that there's a low inventory. There's more demand than they can fill. Are you having that same, are you experiencing that as well, or do you have inventory?
No, we're experiencing the low inventory as well.
And why would that, I mean, the reason for that is that people aren't moving into the city, or why would that, why are you seeing?
Well, I think a lot of the people that are here are not putting their places up for sale. They're staying here. And
right.
So most of what needs to be done today is some new development. And I have to say, my husband and I are developing a small area where we're creating 13 lots, primarily for double wide manufactured homes, close to the school system, and kids could walk to school. And so we're trying to develop that into a combination of retirement as well as school age kids. And I think we're going to be a really nice little community once we get it finished.
And what is your what is the deadline, or when are you going to open that new community?
Well, we're in the platting stages now, and hope to have the plat approved within the next 3 to 4 months. And then we'll be ready to start laying utility lines and paving streets. And we have a few lots up for sale right now that already have direct access to utilities. But we're limited in the number right now until we get some additional lots platted.
And what would those lots go for in terms of cost?
They'll go for around $20,000 a piece.
Oh, that's not bad. I mean, that's very economical, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
And but they are,
They've got all the utilities right there at the lot line.
but they're specifically set up for prefab homes. That's what they are. You bring in your own house and there you
Right,
go.
exactly.
Okay.
So we're looking for homes in the neighborhood of 140 and up.
Mm-hmm. And are you planning on doing more of these developments, or just this one? Or are there other people in your area that might be developing housing projects for people that might want to move to your area that you know of?
Well, I know that there is a lot of talk about one gentleman that is looking to build an apartment complex in Moriarty. And I think that is going to come to fruition. Rental property is a huge need in Moriarty.
Are there
because
any?
we have none.
There's not any?
There's not any. There's not any. If a house were to go up for rent, it would be gone within 24 to 48 hours.
Wow. And what is the population of Moriarty and in Edgewood combined or separate and separately?
Oh gosh, in Moriarty proper, I think we're about 2,500 to 3,000 people, and I may be way off in that number. I've heard numbers, and the last I heard from the previous census was this whole East Mountain area, Estancia Valley area, is about 50,000 people.
Oh, that's a good amount.
So there are a lot more people in the outlying areas than there are within the municipalities.
And you say you're close to I-40. How close are you to the interstate?
My office is right on it.
Okay.
I'm within 5 minutes of a ramp.
So taking I-40 right into Albuquerque, that's a 35-minute drive right on the
It's
interstate.
about 35 minutes. That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Well, good. My timer just went off. So is there anything else you want to mention about Torrance County or your expertise as a realtor? So if somebody's watching this, they may ring you up and say, Myra, I would like to talk to you about moving to your area. Is there anything else you want to include in this little?
Well, I just want to say again, we're country people. Torrance County primarily is farming and ranching. And if you're looking for the country lifestyle, that's us. And nobody knows the country better than we do.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, and I'll have you back on in 2021. We'll talk about other aspects of country living.
Okay.
Well, thank you,
Sounds
Myra.
good.
Thank you.